there's like this philosophy that I've been on lately about like option paralysis, right? You ever feel like you look down at the fretboard and you're just like, holy crap, there's so many lines. There's so many lines going this way and they're this way. And I know I can play in G here, but I have to stop and reset and then get back up here. Like, you ever feel like you can like cruise around in G, but you have to get on up. Like, you have to kind of like stop and reset. Like, it doesn't really have that, like, if you ever hear EJ kind of do the, and it all kind of connects. And it's just having like fluidity around the pentatonic thing. Like, a lot of that can get solved if you just start looking at the guitar in more of a linear fashion. I'm looking for the same thing over and over. Okay, so check this out. If we're in, somebody give me a key. What key will we play in?
A flat.
A flat. Okay. Will that be major or minor?
A flat minor.
A flat minor. Will we have a dominant 7?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Okay. Hell yeah. Dominant 7, A flat. Okay. What I'm doing right now is I'm giving you an insight of how I start to practice. I immediately start giving myself things that will tell me where to go, right? So the next thing is I will start by putting it into a musical context, right? 4/4, 6/8. Who likes it? You know, 4/4. Let's say 4/4, right around. With a major 6. Right? So, okay, in that noodling, what I did was I immediately started looking for the interval that I called out to you guys, right? I was like, all right, where's my 6 at? Because I've announced to the class that we've got that sound, right? So with that, I immediately started thinking about how I can navigate the fretboard and start seeing not only the A, the root, but minor 3rd, 5, right? So obviously we can play, and I don't know if you guys have ever messed with just basic re-fingering positions, okay? By that, we're bad as guitar players to marry a certain finger to an interval, okay? Is that like, do you guys ever do that where you're like, oh man, so if I'm going root to, I'm going to go root to 3rd to 6th. Like, I end up always using this to do it, right? Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to do that every time, right? This is the habit I want to talk about breaking, is fingering something, right? So let's take a line that outlines the chord, right? Just an arpeggio right here. Everybody with me right there in that A minor, A flat minor 7? So when I ascend that, I'm doing 1 to 3. And I'm trying to stay away from rolling things. Do you guys ever feel like you're rolling and that's where your timing kind of goes out the window? Like, check it out, like this thing. Like these. That makes it nice and greasy, which does have a certain tone, you know what I mean? And a certain vernacular to the delivery. But also, if you're wanting something that's like very articulate, I want to play those with the notes within the same fret. Everybody get what's happening there? Where it's like I'm not using the same finger to represent. I'm not doing Mother Nature's capo. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm actually giving everything its own fret. Oh, sorry. And it allows me to not be in a sticky fingering position, right? Like, you ever feel like you're playing and you're flowing good and all of a sudden something's just like sticky, and all of a sudden out for no reason your right hand is messed up, right? Everybody ever feel like that, where like you're playing and all of a sudden like the right hand just doesn't want to do the right picking pattern for whatever reason. A lot of that is coming from that kind of rolling thing, especially with minor 7, especially pentatonic kind of shapes, right? So let's take this one. And I'm going to give you one of my favorite things to do is 2-1-2 thing, okay? So we'll put 2 notes a string, 1 note a string, 2 notes per string, 1 note a string, right? So we end up with, is A flat a good key with everybody? A flat minor a good key with everybody? If it's not, give me a thumbs down. Thumbs up is good. Going to continue on in A flat minor. Okay. So we have 1, 3, 5. Okay. 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay. Now this is going to be cool for your picking hand because it's going to give you a nice little exercise of sequencing something. Like if we've all heard maybe Chick Corea, or I'm a big Brent Mason fan, we hear these sequence things, banjo players love them, where it's like, you know, and it keeps moving forward, right? Like that. You can really get some good mileage out of your picking hand on improving that articulation with these kind of exercises. All of that, I'm still just seeing this as my outlined position kind of thing, right? And I'm using the notes in between to be any kind of alterations that I want. Those alterations tend to happen around specific spots. If it's very 100% a fact that the whole thing is going to be minor, I'm not ever going to mess with that minor thing, right? But one of the things that's really clutch is if it's going to be a major sound but have a major and a minor third. All right, so you guys, like, let's shift into another topic. We're going to keep the pentatonic thing going, but another topic, just a little caveat of it, is one of the things that really grinds my gears is in academia is when they say the blues scale has a minor third. Right? Does anybody find it odd that most of our blues has both major and minor third? We would all agree that that's bluesy as you know? But academia says there's no major third in the blues scale. So what's happening there? That doesn't make sense to me, right? So the blues scale to me ends up being this hodgepodge of situation, right? That's going to be a little bit of a bridge for our country talks too, right? And a lot of country picking. Let's take key of G. A lot of open chords and stuff there. You're going to hear this sound a lot. But it's never going to be, well, I don't want to say never, but it's rarely going to be played like real square and like minor third, major third. It's not going to be like that. It's going to have this kind of sound. So you're hearing minor third, major third, minor third. That's like my number one resolution. Even when you hear guys put in like swing lines, right? Or let's see, what's the number one thing we're hearing at the very end? It's telling us, right? That's the thing, right? It's much like our blues situation where like the blues doesn't mean 1 minor third, 4 flat 5 5 6 7 like that. That's not completely accurate in my opinion, right? You would have a flat 5. Here's a nice grip for like the one of Brent Mason isms, right? This is like a Albert Lee thing for country chicken picking 101. Is like taking a grip, and it doesn't even have to be open. It can be anywhere on the fretboard where you have your 5th stacked on top of your root, okay? So anywhere where you're going to have that 5th stacked on top of the root. Let's take the key of C. So in the key of C, your 5th stack will be right there, right? So it's G on top of C right there. Now what we're going to do is do the pedal tone where we're going to keep, hey, what's up? New player has entered the tournament. Okay, right. We're going to have the pedal tone of the root in our pinky, okay? And we're going to treat the intervals 4, flat 5, and 5. You see all those happening right there? Those are all going to be 4, flat 5, 5, and that's all going to sit on top of that root. And you end up with that kind of banjo roll. Those kind of isms, right? So it's like super grassy sounded, you know? And also you can take it, before we continue on, let's just all get this under our fingers. That's like a nice little move for country where you're basically treating this minor third. You see how I'm playing around the 9 there to a minor third, and then I'm playing around the minor third to a major third. It's like all of these, those are all like on deck and available. So let's take our grip, our little, right? Be a great way to get into a solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're to a 4 chord, for instance, right? And it doesn't even have to be that fast. It can be like, 1, 2, ready, go. You see how like the functionality of it can happen in a lot of different ways. Most importantly with this thing is the tone, right? I'm not using the pick on those. It's not that thing at all. I'm putting the B string to my middle finger and the E string to my ring finger for that truly kind of like really ostentatious kind of bite. Now, the next move is taking that idea and putting it everywhere on the guitar, different intervallic combinations. You can run wild with this. Let's take it where like we have our 7th. Actually, let's take it where we have 3 and 7. Yeah, so we're going to have this sound. Everybody see where I'm at? I'm playing out of this C power chord. And now if we're going to make it like Mel Bay Cowboy C7, that thing, right? Like, that's Mel Bay C7, Cheese Pizza C7, right? So now we're going to have that, but instead of having it all super vanilla sounding, let's put that little sass on it where we're playing that minor third to major third thing where we're bluesy, right? Right? So now we're going to play, and you see your root is right there below it. So just keeping this kind of, right? Now I wouldn't play all jacked up like that. It would be more normal. I'm just trying to visually get you guys that thing. And now look, it's also, again, it's putting it across the whole guitar. So now we can do F and 7. We can do a 4 and 7 there. Now there, I've got the root and the 7th pegged down, and I'm rolling minor 3, major 3, and 4. I'm taking really simple little baby ingredients, you know, but mixing up the delivery of it. Let's put them all together. Right, so you can keep going on that all day long. You can put them up here with 7th and 3rd again. Now I've got a 6 in there, right? So I'm just playing a D7 shape, right? With that D7 shape all the way up in C. But I've got 7 and 6, right? And those little staccato runs, what is that? That's exactly what's up here. You see, I'm trying to get as much mileage as I can. That's my whole philosophy with the guitar, is getting as much mileage out of what you know. Not having to look at the guitar as like this endless well of option paralysis, right? Like if you can play, you know, You should be able to have that everywhere. And anything that I'm adding in is really not anything that's crazy alien. I'm strictly diatonic. So I've got one. Let's take this grip. Same C thing, right? Let's take one, but instead of playing minor third here, you know how I was talking about marrying a finger to an interval and how that's a bad habit of guitarists? Now let's play minor third in our third finger, but we're still in this grip. So we're going to put first finger there. Like, this is what you want to be able to do, is have every finger can play the fret and it not be a big deal. You're like, whatever. You know what I mean? Start here, start here, start here. It doesn't matter, right? So let's take root there. And now we're going to take minor third next to it. Right? Rock and roll time. Root, minor third. Okay. And then we're going to go 4, 5, flat 7. Straight up pentatonic, right? You know what? This is super fun, but it's going to be way more fun if I change my tone. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, I want that. So now we got the super Eric Johnson-y thing kind of happening. Let's take that same grouping. So now look at this as a 5-note grouping that has 2 notes and 3 notes. For a picking, this is going to give you a lot of stuff to work on. It's going to be a lot of stuff to chew on. Unless you're all a bunch of mutants and can do everything I'm talking about, at which point I will just turn off the computer. Let's have a 5-note grouping, and let's play it ascending, right? Straight through with either 8 notes or 16th notes. It doesn't matter, right? You're going to notice that your picking hand will invert, okay? This is going to be one of those like sticky things that sucks. It's like not fun because you know what it's supposed to sound like. It's super easy to hear the way it sounds, but it sucks to pick, okay? So I'm going to give it to you really slow, and you're going to be like, Andy, this is stupid. I can do this. But check it out. Really slow. Same thing again. Okay.
Hi. I can't see your picking hand. Can you?
Oh, yeah. The picking hand is super simple. I'll kick it up, but is starting with a downstroke, all alternate picked. Okay? So we're going to alternate pick everything. You guys don't have to mute. You can stay unmuted. I'd love to hear your lovely voices. It's all good. So we have down, up, down, up, down. Okay? That gets us to the top of it. Now, we're not going to have a rest. We're going to ascend it again. So here's the way it's going to sound. Now what's going to happen, it sucks, besides my dirty volume pot, is it's going to be down, up, 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 down, So like now you can start to see where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to start putting in other octaves using the same position. Right? So let's go slow. Here's the exercise just for picking. Right? Now let's go ahead and move that from 3 positions. So let's start the root on the low E string. And this is going to be the same shape across the guitar. This is one of those get a ton of mileage out of very little hand shifting. Okay? So here's the same shape down here. And now, let's move to the next octave. We're going to take the whole thing and just move our finger down 2 strings and move it up a whole step, right? And it's going to be the same exact shape, which is cool, right? Sorry, I messed it up. And now at this point, you're going to want to start messing with connecting them. So you'll have, of course, the simple way would be up and down, up and down. Fair enough. That's not really interesting because it becomes very predictable. One of the things that will break up the predictability is start leaving out intervals. Watch what happens when I use this shape that we've outlined and I jump to this shape, but I'm going to leave some stuff out. Right? Now it starts to sound more like that EJ thing. Right? It starts really getting into that territory. So I'm taking the same shape every time. Here it is up top. But now when I descend, I'm going to slide my first finger back to 7. I'm going to leave out some intervals, play 5, minor third, 1. So now I've got... open-ended it becomes when you start leaving out intervals, moving things around through the pentatonic. It sounds so much cooler than being like, right? Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of cool stuff to be played in that pentatonic plain old box. But when you can start moving things around and leaving out intervals, you start ending up with that angular thing that becomes very Eric Johnson-y. Sean Lane would be another one that just had miles of pentatonics, you know, they could go out forever. Of note, if we're going to make it major, we're simply going to move the third up. So the same principle to everything, we're just going to move the third up. Sorry, too far, that went to 4. Now we've got a dominant 7 sound. Right? And that's a cool sound too. That sounds very almost Steve Morsey. So now I'm just starting to expand and keep rolling through that sequencing of looking at my pentatonics without looking at them in like, here's box A, I know pentatonic box A, stop, reset. Here's box B, I know pentatonic box. Like I know that the caged system, you guys have seen that on the internet, right? Everybody's like cage system, right? That's got a lot of cool things going for it, except for the fact that it teaches you to turn off and turn on each shape, right? And what I'd like you to experiment with, and you can get more mileage out of your pentatonics, is by not turning on and turning off each shape. For example, the same thing again in that same area of C minor pentatonic. Sorry. And now when I start putting emphasis on different intervals, you start hearing these different types of sounds. Right? That's emphasizing that 4 heavily. But the point is not looking at it like... you can tell I don't even play like that. It's hard for me to like turn it back on to like cage type stuff. Now, if that isn't enough fun pentatonic stuff, we can do one more cool thing with it to give your playing some more life, which is going to be a little bit more towards my electric players, and and for that very reason, I'll keep this short. But taking your minor pentatonic or your major pentatonic and applying it linearly across the fretboard, almost the way a slide player would, right? So that's all super majory sounding, right? You could do the same thing with minor. And on all of that, I'm simply taking... looking at it all on one string. And now one thing that I notice is when guys start playing on one string, I'm like, hey man, play me a solo on one or two strings. They end up sounding like this. Let's take C major again. I'm like, hey, play me something pretty in C major. And they'll most likely go. And it's all the note connected to the note before or after it. That's because it's easy to know the right note because you can see the one that's coming, right? The trick is to look at it intervallically and say 1, 3, 5, 6, right? And now you can really start to get a vibe for the guitar. Somebody said, play me something pretty. Right? Just playing that almost evokes a melody in and of itself, and not looking at it from like it sounds very square and very poked out, you know, versus looking at the guitar in a linear fashion. And that's all in your pentatonic range. Yeah, hand was up. You have to unmute yourself. I'm not good with lip reading. No, nothing. I really want to hear it. Now I'm intrigued. No. Maybe it might be in the top right corner. I've got you guys laid out in gallery view. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's definitely on your end because I don't have any of you guys muted.
You can always use the chat bar too. If that helps, Eric. If you have a question for Andy.
Yeah, anything. So yeah, with that said, that's kind of like my thoughts on getting more mileage out of pentatonics, right? It's like there's no reason that pentatonic needs to be kind of a dirty word that like you only use when you're talking about Mel Bay page 4. Like that's not the thing, right? Like Derek Trucks gets more mileage out of major pentatonic than anybody on this planet, and every time he plays guitar, it's so good it makes me want to cry. You know, so it's like you don't have to look at pentatonic as this like simplistic thing because it's really not. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm just curious. What are you playing through right now?
Axe Effects, just Axe Effects 2. Yeah. So now, if I start building that into, you know, the country thing or the rock thing, all these things start holding hands. You know, if I'm gonna even play some kind of jazzy thing, let's see. I'm still seeing it here, but I'm more focused on where my intervals are at, right? 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. If I wanted a major 7 kind of sound, you know. Sorry. Yeah. So I was trying to play something a little out of my price range, which was. Yeah. So it's just kind of like an idea that I've been kind of working on is taking the intervallic structure that I know and finding a grip that third, right? And now I'm in major, but I'm going to play a flat 6, flat 7. So when you start stacking that, even though I'm playing a dominant 7 sound, it doesn't sound all dominant 7-y. It sounds more whole tone. It sounds more like that, even though I'm only altering one freaking thing. Right? Yeah.
So one question is like when you're adding in notes that aren't in the pentatonic, do you switch into thinking like, oh, I'm going to go into Dorian mode, or are you actually just thinking pentatonic and I'm going to add in?
I don't really even think pentatonic, truthfully. Like I know that's the aim of the course, and I'm trying to tie the way that I think to pentatonic. I'm actually thinking about root and third and its relationship. And if anything sounds altered to me, I'm usually listening for the sixth. The sixth is a telltale interval for me. Like if it's like this kind of thing. That sounds super altered. You know, you start getting, you get that thing. That kind of thing. So that's all built around the sixth. Now, what if we don't have that and it's more inside? You know, you get. Right? You just see that I'm thinking 1, 3, 5, 6, 1. And that's a very chicken pickany kind of thing. And even in that kind of instance, when I'm seeing the pentatonic, it's almost like it's like kind of graphed out, but I'm really, really thinking about the interval structure that I'm aiming at. So like, we could take this basic formula, 7-1-3-5-7, in that arpeggiated kind of format where it's 2-1-2. And now we can apply that to some changes. Let's just take a blues, right? You see what I did? Played the same exact thing on that 4 chord, but I played one flat out of the 4 chord. I played the 7, root 3, 5, root. So I kind of played like that, and it lets you know immediately where I was at in the chord progression. So if I were to continue through that blues, sorry. Now let's go. So all of that framed 3, 6, 2, 5, right? So it's like all of these things that I keep twisting and turning. Half the time I don't know what I'm really aiming at. I just know what the anchor interval is, and if I move that and I alter that up or down, that's where I start getting a lot of character. And I'm not really thinking about a boatload of modes. Right? Like my brain isn't ever going, well, better whip out that, Lydian dominant sound that I've been working on. It's like I don't think like that. You know what I mean? It's like if I hear that, if I hear a chord that's got this, it's like, ooh, now we got to raise fourth. My brain doesn't go, Lydian, better play, whatever over whatever to get there. Like I said, when I was at school, I learned just enough of that to get myself in trouble, and I ended up making all these shortcuts for the fretboard and in my mind. Because Lydian, even though it's the F scale from C to C, right? It's like that's a lot of equation. Now you start getting to a Lydian dominant. That's a lot of stuff to think on the fly. By the time you actually process all that stuff, the chord change is gone. Because usually when you have that sound, it's over something that's like a lot of bebop-y kind of altered harmony type of stuff. And those songs like to change chords a lot, right? So for me, I like to just look at the whole fretboard and just go, hey man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now what am I changing? Like who's getting moved? 4? All right, you're going up a fret. Okay, good. 7, you're going down a fret. Done. Now I can solo freely, like over that. Like now this becomes readily available without a lot of like algebra in my head. You know what I mean? So like that modal way of thinking is really good for describing or building or composing, but I found it really counterintuitive for soloing, especially when you're trying to alter on the fly. Like a lot of times I'm just like stacking like stuff. Like when I say stuff, I'm like, right? So like 1 flat 5 1, Like, you see how my brain is basically going triad, triad, triad. And anything I want to move around in that is fine as long as I can sell it to myself, which therefore means I can sell it to the listener, right? This is the way I think about altering anything, you know, because a lot of it ties to either, and again, when I'm thinking about that 6, it really ties it to that augmented kind of sound. This, isn't that far from this, right? It's one interval away from being the same thing. So when I'm thinking about like altering all of that crap at the same time, it's easier to do it in this kind of like moving little things across the fretboard and still using this. Using that as my outline. Like if I'm just going to play a ton right there in C, and I'm going to have some altered stuff. I wouldn't really play that. I play and I'd frame that diminished. That's more of like how you hear that 6 again. Now I'm just making that a diminished chord. So again, what did we talk about earlier? Now we're just going up to 6. I'm trying to pull as much wool off of this stuff as I can and show you that like that altered thing isn't as intimidating as one is led to believe when you see all the vernacular. Like we get online, we're like, I want to play altered. It's like, dude, you can spend 2 minutes on Google and immediately you feel like you've been steamrolled, you know? It's like, because people started like, oh man, Lydian dominant, that's supposed to be so far above my pay grade. It's like, dude, it's really not. You know what I mean? It's like, don't think about it as this whole equation that has to be filled out over this whole other equation, because if that's the case, you're not going to be able to use it. You got to think of it in just what interval movements are happening. And most importantly, the resolution is the most important thing. So I'm playing all outside right now with no resolution. If we had something that resolved, let's say, right? So that was using all of it. So I was trying to use all of it, but we heard the resolution where. And that stuff ends up being fun if you just got something static. You can end up having a lot of fun with having something more to say, like you know. So I'm always just looking to twist 1 or 2 little notes and then get back to like resolving it back in to make it make sense with something. And of course, none of this would really apply if you're in certain circumstances, right? Again, it's like if you're playing some kind of, you know, rock metal thing, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. I would be more about playing these things. So let's do one more. Let's do one more just to give you something super crazy technical to work on. That'll be fun. Get one more tone here. Yeah, that'll work. So like, let's take the one that we were talking about, the pentatonic thing that we were working on. Let's use a hammer-on and to go root to minor third. This is purely technique, and this is purely for fun. That's a warning. This is all just for fun. It's all for giggles. So you can play hammer-on, now middle finger for the 5th. So 1 minor third 5. Right? Okay, now we're going to go 1, minor third, 5, 7, slide up. That's going to be one grip, one part of the thing. And if you do it without, you can have hammer on, pluck, hammer on, pull off. And all of this can be done on acoustic guitars, so don't fear. This is all just for fun. It's a way to play those arpeggio boxes without sweeping. You notice it sounds, it doesn't sound like rah, rah, rah. You know what I mean? Because sweeping sometimes sounds like the time shift is like, it doesn't sound like it's in time. It just sounds like somebody going, it's like there's no articulation to it, right? So this is like a way to get some articulation in. All right, so now we're going to move up. Moving on, we're going to move up. Slide up, okay. We're not done yet. Let's do the same thing in a new octave. 1, minor third, 5, 7. Slide up again, right? Trying to get that far. And now on this one, let's play 1, minor third. Let's just do pentatonic. And if you feel froggy, you can tap. All right, so we're going to go. Right? So one more time. Now when you go down it, you can slide with your third finger, or you can slide with your first finger. Right? So you end up with this sound. Now you can mix and match your pentatonic in every position, right? That's that 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, all on a 2-string set. And you can mix that with your 1, 3, 5, 7 on a 3-string set. So you have 2 options. And it just keeps expanding. You can start doing those kind of things. It just keeps going on forever. Like it's like the box that just keeps, like, what do you call that? Pandora's box. You know what I mean? You can keep stacking intervals until it just sounds like R2D2 exploding. You know what I mean? Like some of my favorite ones is when you start stacking the like the 4s on it. Those kind of sounds. Those end up being really ridiculous sounding things. It's like a full one out. But anyways, besides the point, I think it's those kinds of ideas help you visualize the pentatonics moving more like this versus like, again. There's nothing wrong with that. That's really great. But I feel like everybody on the planet can show you that, teach you that. Like I feel like at least if we're looking at some things a different way, you can maybe take something new home with you.